Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Crank Addict, and this is the channel for crank addicts like me and hopefully like you. Today, we're back on the Trans Am. This car has not been on the road in over a year, and we're gonna put the engine back in it and do a little mod to improve its cooling efficiency, so stay tuned. All right, guys, well, this thing is a mess right now. Look at all of the dust that is on this car. It's really sad. But this is a 1976 Trans Am SE with T-tops. And that is a 455 over there next to the lawnmower. So, yeah, this is a pretty cool car. This car came out 1 year before the movie. You know what movie I'm talking about. And so, they didn't make too many of these SEs. In fact, if you wanted a 4-speed with the 455, that's the only way they came, and T-tops, well, out of all the years from 1970 to 1981, they only made 110 T-top cars with the 455. That is it. And who knows how many of those cars were destroyed in the making of the movie, and how many of those cars were junked. I'm only aware of 2 others like this, so hey, if you guys know of a 455 4-speed 76 with T-tops, yeah, give me a shout out in the comments section. I like to know. So anyway, real quick about this car. Yeah, my brother and I restored this car. Gosh, 15 years ago. It was a rotisserie restoration, but you know, it's 15 years now, so it's got little bumps and bruises here and there. You can see a little scratch on the firewall from pulling the engine out, most likely. Who knows? But yeah, it's pretty cool stuff here. I am running the factory T10 4-speed. For wheels, I've got the 17-inch year 1 honeycombs, and they come from year 1 with 17 by 9 inches, I believe. And I have these back ones modified to 11 inches, so I'm actually running 335s on the back of this car. Yeah, super cool. Very stock appearing Hello Mustang GT seat. That's for another episode. And yeah. Oh, yeah, and you can see the little bit of damage here on the side from when I put this car in the ditch. It pushed both fenders back into the doors and scraped them up pretty good there. So yeah, I got to do a little bit of paint work on this car. But like I said, first things first, let's get this thing on the road. The engine itself is a 455 with a Butler stroker assembly, forged cranks, I-beam rods, I believe. I'm using Ross forged pistons. Can't remember who did the serpentine belt system here, but I've got a video on that. You can look it up. I am running a ProComp Chinese intake manifold because it has fuel injection. And for fuel injection, I am running Micro Squirt, which is a super cute little box that you got to program on your own. You can pay a small amount of money and make it self-tuning, which I did, but it's not perfect. You know, it still needs a bit of, you got to play around with the acceleration tables mostly. You know, the fuel enrichment and spark. All I can do is tune the air-fuel ratio. I can't do anything about spark or acceleration. So anyway, what we've got going on here, the way the cooling system on these Pontiacs work is you've got the lower radiator hose like you have on most vehicles feeding into the water pump. This other bung here is for your heater outlet. Normally your heater goes from the back of your cylinder head here to your heater box, around and back in here. The heater plug itself has a restriction in it, and that restriction is only 1/4 of an inch in diameter. So if you're running a heater outlet that does not have a restriction in it, you're going to be pumping a lot of water through your heads, through your heater. It's probably not going to cool that way. You got to let the coolant stay in the engine block for a little bit so it can absorb the heat, and then you want to get it out and cool it down. If it moves through too fast through the engine, you're not going to cool the engine down. So anyway, from the water pump, you can see it feeds right into the block on the passenger side and the driver's side. The water pump is connected to the thermostat housing itself right here. This is another return. So you get return from the heater, you get return from the radiator, and you get return from this thermostat here. Actually, this return here from the thermostat housing is hot coolant. So I'm not really sure why they did that, because it seems like it's just going to be mixing your hot coolant with your cold coolant, but that's the way it is. So once the coolant enters the engine, it goes through the block, up through the heads, circulates back toward the front into the thermostat housing. Mine has been cut apart so that I can like play around with it and get the port match on the intake a little bit better. It's just a little racer's trick that they do. And if you ever need to remove your intake manifold, you don't have to drain your coolant. So it's kind of cool. Okay, but like I said, after the coolant goes through the engine block and up to the heads, this coolant back here is pumped out into the heater. And like I said, if you're not running your heater, then the water just circulates all right back into your water pump, and it never actually goes through the radiator. So not the best situation there. Alright. Here is probably a 45-year-old heater outlet, and you can see the restriction that is built in right through there. That is only a 1/4 inch there. So like I said, if you're running a heater outlet that doesn't have that, you're pushing way too much coolant through your heater, and you probably need to install some kind of valve or something to shut it down. So back of the engine, I have already removed the distributor. I marked where the rotor was pointing, and I also marked the distributor, how it was phased right there. So I'm going to put this back as close as possible to its original location. And I am going to be tapping this rear heater outlet with this big old monster tap. This guy is a 1-inch National Pipe Thread tap. And I put some grease on here to collect as much of the metal shavings as possible. So we're going to stick this guy in here. I said you got to remove the distributor because it's going to be hitting the distributor most likely. And we're going to tap this place out. I can imagine this would be pretty tough to do in the car. So it might be better to do it next rebuild. But you never know. You can probably get it in the car. Working in the back, I'd probably remove the hood. But I think it could be done. And your engine wouldn't be moving around on you so much either. Alright, well I just received a bunch of goodies in the mail last night. So let me show you what I got. I got these 1-inch pipe thread adapters with a, I think it's a 1/4 inch pipe thread on this side. Yeah, 1/4 with a 1/4. 1 inch and 1/4. So these are going to thread into the block, and the 1/4 inch outlet will do well to limit the coolant flow out of the back of the heads. I'm using a straight fitting with a 45-degree hose adapter. So I got to build some hoses. Got the same thing going on the other side. These are going to go to a couple more hose fittings and a T-adapter. This T-adapter is kind of cool. It actually has a female end on it. So I take this female end, thread it into this Y. The Y adapter, more hose fittings, is going to go to the front of the engine. Well, I should say, it's going to go to the front of the intake manifold, to the back side of the coolant crossover, and I'm going to drill and tap it for this 3/8 fitting, and it'll be draining into there, right underneath the thermostat. So I'll be able to get that hot water out of there. This T, I built this T in here so I can take the T and go to my interior heater, the heater box, the heater core. Okay, so like I said, I'm still using these are all -8 fittings all around. I think are these -8s? What are these guys? Take it back, these look like -6s. So these are -6 fittings all around, which are normally, like I said, they're normally 3/8 on the ID, but because of these adapters, you know, it's going to limit the flow to only 1/4 inch, so that'll help to tighten it up. A -8 is a 1/2 inch fitting on the inside, and that's definitely way too much flow. Your engine will never cool down because it's pushing too much water through it. Anyway, so with this T fitting here, I am going to take another hose, -6 hose, and I'm going to run it to this adapter here and then tie into my heater line. The heater line is a 5/8 inch heater line. Let me show you that. Okay, so the heater line down there on the floor goes up underneath this heater core and around somewhere down here, okay? And that is a 5/8 inch line. And when you're adapting from a 5/8 inch hose to an AN fitting, your only option is a -10 AN fitting. So we got to take that -10 fitting down to a -6, and that's what this guy does. He'll adapt the heater hose from that -10 that I installed down to the -8. So theoretically, I will have the ability to flow, you know, a 3/8 of a inch amount of coolant through there, which is more than the 1/4, okay, that the factory does. But I figure since I am doing both sides of the head 1/4, and this 3/8 is a limiting factor, then I think this should keep it decently cool. It should hold enough water there. I am also going to be installing a -6 shutoff valve in here, so that if I wanted to, I could crank that valve down a little bit more and restrict the water even more, especially during the summer. That way I don't have to have any water going through the heater core. But I've got to make up a bunch of little teeny hoses. So let's get going. Alright, so anyway, step one, let's install these 1-inch pipe fittings on the back of the cylinder heads. If I can straighten out this Teflon tape a little bit. Alright, looks nice. Now you get a big wrench. Let's tighten that. There's my big wrench. Alright, so now I'll take my 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter and install those. Okay, well, I'm starting to run into a problem here with my setup. I was originally planning on using these 45s off of this straight fitting, but that's gonna put my hose way too tall. And that's like way up here. I'm not sure I could do that. I'm gonna go with that. If I tilt this down, maybe I could do it that way. If I prop up my T-fitting on top, maybe I can sneak that around there. Let's see if I get another 45. Let's see. Let me grab that other 40. Oh, I'll just steal it off here. I'll spin it around actually. Okay, so if I use this other 45, let me kind of tighten them down so they'll hold their position. Okay. All right. I don't know. Maybe that would work. That's not the best angle though. That hose is going to have quite a bit of flex in it. That's going to be tricky. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these 45s on the T-fitting. Okay, and I'm going to keep the heater fitting going up. I'll aim the 45s toward the outlets. If I can tighten this nut, come on. And I'm going to change this fitting out for a 90. I could buy a 90 degrees hose end, but as you can see, they're pretty long, and I don't think I have the room for that. But if I swap this out for a 90 degree fitting here, hopefully I can find one with a 1/4 inch adapter, then I can use a straight fitting like that. And that will be really super tight. That's going to be pushing it right there, but maybe that'll work. That might give me the room I need to make that go. So I don't have any 90 degree fittings with either a 1/4 inch or a 3/8 adapter. I've got nothing. So I got to order 2 more fittings, and it'll take a few days to get this going again. So hey, I'm doing the trial and error for you guys, so you don't have to. All right, while I'm waiting for those new fittings to come in the mail, I'm gonna go ahead and take off this crossover. Like I said, I had mine already cut apart, so I don't have to remove the whole intake manifold. I can just remove the crossover by itself. I've got ARP bolts here, so they require a 3/8 12 point. And don't forget the 1/2 inch bolt from the water pump to the crossover. That's what secures your bypass. It's kind of like a big block Chevy. The big block Chevy has like a little hose that will drop down into the water pump for a bypass. And that's another cooling mod you can make. You can block off that bypass, but if you do that, you need to make sure that you give the water a place to go to. So if you block off this bypass, you need to drill a couple of small holes in your thermostat to allow the pressure to escape. But there's other mods you can do, like plugging the bypass and then drilling a small hole in that as well. But yeah, the problem is this bypass allows hot water to mix with your incoming cold water, which is not ideal. That's one of the problems when you run a -8, -10 line from these rear ports, one or both, to your heater without using a control valve, is that it allows so much hot water to go all the way back around, back into the water pump, that your engine will actually cool worse if you do that. I'm no Pontiac guru, but I have been dealing in Pontiacs since, oh boy, 1986. I don't want to calculate how many years that is. That's depressing. All right, this thing's gonna be glued down. There we go. All right, so here you can see that crossover that I'm talking about. There's this little donut that fits in there. It's a little crush washer. Okay. And you always want to put a little bit of silicone on these guys because they don't seal so well. And that's why we cut this apart, so that you can actually tighten this front bolt together, pull this thing closer to the water pump before you do your final torquing. So one way to do it is take a pipe tap, run a pipe tap through there, put a plug in there, and then drill a small hole in there to allow pressure out. That'll minimize how much water is returned to the water pump, how much hot water is returned to the water pump. And on the back side here, got a couple of options. I could go down low and drill a fitting down here, but boy, that's going to be hard to get to. Like if I tap this bottom portion right here, it's going to be hard to get to that fitting, but that would look for a pretty clean installation. Instead, I'm going to use this big flat area right here. I'm going to drill a hole, tap it, put in my -6 fitting here, and we'll use that for the return. Alright, well, I don't know if you can see, but I kind of tapped my hole here a little bit crooked because when I was drilling it, this chunk of metal here was thicker than the metal over here, and it kind of pushed my drill off to the side and it oblonged my hole. So by tapping it at a slight angle, I'm able to maintain good threads all the way around. Not ideal, but it is what it is. Alright, so anyway, I went ahead and tapped the water crossover, and I'm going to put in another 3/8 inch pipe plug. And this one's solid, and I don't know if my thermostat has been drilled or not, so I'm going to go ahead and just drill a small 1/8 inch hole in here just to relieve any pressure. But I want to install it first before I drill it, because I don't have a good way to hold these pipe plugs without damaging the threads. Alright, there you go. You can see the hole in there, right there. 1/8 inch. A few days have gone by, and I now have some 90-degree fittings to install in these rear ports. So I removed the straight ones. We'll be putting these instead. Alright, well, this is what I decided on for the finale. Coming off these back 90s, I'm using straight and straight into this Y fitting. And on the front, I'm going to use a 45 to, upside down. I'm going to use a 45 to tie into the front. So this thing is threaded underneath my fuel supply. And then you can tighten it up front and in the back. Good. All right. Well, I just need to reseal my intake crossover and reinstall my distributor. I have marked everything, so it should just drop in and fire up no problem. But that is my cooling system mod. Well, okay. I did eliminate the other 90 that I had in here originally. I just couldn't make it work with these short sections here. So what I'm going to be doing in the future, instead of using another T or whatever, for that, I'm going to put a T here. It's going to be a 1/4 inch pipe by -6 by -6 And then from there, I'll be able to run it over to my shutoff valve. And I'm just going to be able to, use this in the winter months. It doesn't get too cold here, but you can see, flow this way. -6 in. Got this big old adapter, 6 to 10. And of course, because all the heater line is 5/8 inch, I'm using a 10 AN to a 5/8 barb, which is the only way you can get a 10 AN light. So anyway, that's gonna be my whole setup here. Okay. If I were gonna do this again, I probably wouldn't use the AN fittings. They're pretty cool, they're pretty fancy. Some of them are gonna be pretty hard to get to underneath the intake manifold. Although it's no longer attached to the water crossover, the intake comes off pretty easy. But still, I'd rather not have to worry about that. But it does look pretty clean, it looks pretty racy. But like I said, if I were to do it again, I would probably use fuel line and barber fittings. This was a kind of pricey endeavor, but it's fun. And when you're building these cars, what else are you going to do with your money, right? So, hope you like this video. Oh, one cool thing here before we leave. Check this out. All right. I picked this up this week. This is a Richmond 4+1 5-speed transmission. I'm not sure why they call it a 4+1 because it's all 5 forward gears. 4+1 seems like an overdrive to me, but this is a non-overdrive unit, and since the Trans Am's got 308 gears in the back, this will work great with it. I might even change the rears to a 273. If you go any higher than 273, like a 254 or 242, I think those are the gears. You gotta use a special carrier for your 8.5 inch, and seems like a lot of work for that low of a gear, but I don't know, we'll see. First thing is to get everything back in the Trans Am so I can get this car on the road again. It is time. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys again soon.